Right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone. I want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. A few questions came in. We'll see where they go. First question was someone asked before about people using sorcery. Let's say using spirits, right, which is really forbidden to do, even for non-Jews, right? Using sorcery to, it's not hard to tap in to sorcery. You don't have to be on any real spiritual level. You just have to certain things you have to know how to do, but it's not very not very difficult, but still not a good thing to do. Still, I mean, not just not a good thing to do, but it's forbidden to do. But even so, there's a question that if a person, let's say, use sorcery, to control angels or whatever, do their work for them. And what do? They wanted them to do something, I don't know, I guess against someone else. Yeah. So let's say in this case, person died on the exact anniversary of the date when it was implemented, right? A year late. Let's say someone used sorcery, right? Someone used sorcery on someone else, right? I don't know, punish them, have power over them, or have certain power. I don't know exactly what. And essentially what happened was that a year later, right? Let's make sure I got the question right here. A year later, when they started it, in other words, let's say they started a certain date. They started on a certain date, and a year later, the person dies. Right? Let's say exactly a year later. Is this a sign? That's first question. Is it a sign? Second question, was the Torah say something like this happens and they die? Was it because they planned it? Right? So now, sorcery, as we said before, sorcery forbidden for Jews or non-Jews. Sorcery definitely forbidden. Now, using it against someone else to harm them, right? Let's say. I mean, sorcery shouldn't be used in general. To use power from it, to do anything, forbidden. Wanting to cause someone damage or potentially killing them, also forbidden. Right? No question. All cases over here forbidden. Very, very easy. Now, the question is, a year later, let's say specific day they did this, whatever it was. Let's say, I don't know, October 1st last year. October 1st, they use sorcery. They want to injure someone or kill someone, whatever, using sorcery. Again, in all cases, be forbidden, but let's say. Now, a year later, October 1st, right? Today's October 1st, secular calendar. So on October 1st, a year later, that person dies. So the $1 million question is, if the person dies a year later, is that a sign? Is that a sign? So I would say, if a person knew what they were doing, right? First thing I would say is, if a person knew what they were doing, they used sorcery, let's say, to kill someone, which is forbidden, but let's say they did, and they die a year later. What could be the obvious questions? Why didn't they die earlier? Why didn't they die the same day? Why didn't they die a week later? Why didn't they die 2 days later? If you're telling me someone used sorcery on someone else and they died the exact same day, well, that's might be a good sign. Right? Maybe we'll say that's a sign. Right? But you got to remember that God is going to take people when he takes them. There are a lot of messengers. God has a lot of messengers. Now, sorcery in general, does it have power? It's got power. You don't have to do very much to tap into it. It's still forbidden to do. Right? But it's got power. Now, even if somebody used sorcery on someone else and they want to have control of certain angels, certain powers, where they're going to have power over someone else, potentially cause them to die. Let's say. Now, in this world, do they have power over the angel of death? Interesting question. Maybe they're invoking certain power to cause someone damage. Good. There's only one problem. What's the problem? The problem is if God wants the person to be damaged that way, they will be. If God doesn't want them to be damaged that way, they won't be. So the question is, well, isn't it a sign? I'll tell you what the sign is. They died. Right? Reuven died. Now, he dies a year later. Someone, tries to wipe them out through sorcery. And a year later, they die. Even if they die a year later, 6 months later, a month later, what's the simple answer? Simple answer is they died because God took them. That's the answer. Harbe shluchim lamakum. God's got a lot of messengers. Right? Heard someone say today, you don't know what today's going to bring. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Person walks outside, gets run over. Someone riding a bike, runs them over. Kills them. We don't know one day to the next. Does the person expect to get run over by a bike? By an electric bike, let's say? Wasn't a car. I don't think it was a car. Say, whatever. Got run over by a bike. Died. Could have been a scooter. I don't know. That person was supposed to die that day. The person ran him over. He was just the messenger. God used them as the messenger. Without going into the negligence of the person and what happened, God used that person to kill this other person. Okay. Now let's say this guy who killed him is having a bad day. He's having a bad day, bad thoughts, wasn't concentrating, boom, ran over someone. Is he guilty? Tell me he's guilty. Even killed by accident. It'd be the time of the Torah, we would have to run through a Ari Miklat, a city of refuge. That's what he would have had to do. But what happens? We don't have city of refuge today. So it could be, maybe consumer negligence. But didn't God use that person to kill someone else? He did. So how can we say anything's a sign? You can't say anything's a sign. I would say there are things that are more coincidental, quote unquote. In other words, someone did X and then Y happened. Direct result. Okay. You see something being direct. Somebody negligent. How many stories have we heard? Just throw this out there. How many stories have we heard? People doing all kinds of crazy stunts. Right? All kinds of crazy stunts. And they died from it. So now you can say, well, wasn't that their time to die? And that's the way they died. Someone negligent. They do something, that's dangerous. If they don't have any extra lives, I would say, They don't have any merit to save themselves. They could die. God could take them. So you could tell me someone hanging off a cliff wants to get that great picture, and guess what? They slip. They go crashing down to their death. So you could think, well, that's a direct result, right? Direct result. Negligence, stupidity. Goes against Kaufman's 615th commandment. Don't be a moron. Well, what are you doing? You can't put yourself in danger. Now, you can say that's a direct result. Person was negligent. Okay. But you know what? That's how God got them. You're going to tell me it's a direct result. You can't tell me otherwise. Okay. It's a direct result. But if they had any merit to live, God wouldn't have taken them. So he took them in that way. But he can't say, oh, look. I mean, if you tell me something like that, oh, it's direct. X led to Y, led to Z. Yes. True, but who says, even if it's direct, who says God's not orchestrating that also? He's just taking them in that way, being negligent. Okay? Is there an omen in such a thing? They're stupid. Someone who does something like that, they're an idiot. They're putting their life in their own hands. Okay. But see, we believe in God. We believe God runs the world. We believe God is in charge. So if we believe he's in charge, that's the way the person died, but God was going to take him anyway. The only question is, how's he going to take him? He can take him falling off a cliff, take him drop dead of a heart attack, could take him, person goes into hospice, a lot of different ways. You again, if it's more direct, then I hear the question. In other words, someone did sorcery on someone else, that person dies. Very strange death, right? Let's say. Make it nice and juicy here before Rosh Hashanah. Person dies a very strange death. Very, very strange death. Same day. Wouldn't we say that's probably a direct result? We'd say it's probably a direct result. Person put a curse on them, they died that way. They died on natural circumstances. You tell me it happened very soon thereafter, I hear the question. I hear the question. You tell me a person dies a year later. A year later. You want to tell me the same thing? Is that an omen? No, it's not an omen. Even if they died the same day, it's still not an omen. Kind of a novelty here. Yeah. Why is it not an omen? Because the person was destined to die anyway. They just happen to die that way. So if they died that way, you say, well, very interesting coincidence. Person put a hex on them, sorcery, whatever, and they died shortly thereafter. Okay. So what happened to divine protection? Why didn't God save them? So what would I say? Very simple answer. They had no merit to be saved. They had no extra lives. That was their time to go. This is the way it happened. So first part of the question is, if you tell me it happened on that day, same day, yeah, very interesting. But the person was going to die anyway. This is the way they died. So therefore, even on the same day, I'll tell you a big novelty here. Even if they died on the same day, who says that's the reason? They were destined to die anyway. So God made it happen this way. Oh, but it looks like sorcery has real power. It has power. Doesn't have power over God. Doesn't have power over the angel of death. If God tells the angel of death, take him in that way, that's the way it goes. Sorcery does not have power over God. Because God is absolute. Nothing has independent powers, we always say, right? That's why there's a problem with Christians, many problems with Christians, right? One of them, Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7, God created evil. Torah says God created evil. Look at any translation, right? Any good translation. Look at King James. No, they change it. Because God can't create evil, because where does evil come from? Mr. S, contradiction. They have an agenda. What are you going to do with that? Who takes life? God gives life, he takes life. You take life in many different ways. You can't take life against his will, against God's will. Where do I know that from? Book of Job. Very, very beginning, book of Job. The adversary, Mr. S, wants to test Job. God says you can test him, you can't kill him. All right, God says, what do you think of my servant Job? Said, if I test him, whatever, he's going to blaspheme against you. God says, no, he won't. So he says, let me test him, okay? God says you can test him. You do a lot of things to him. What's the only thing you can't do? Can't kill him. You're not allowed to kill him. So what do I see? The angel of death doesn't have power over God. The angel of death works hand in hand with God. He's a messenger, right? His days are almost up here today, right? Because, the Messiah imminent of coming here. But the angel of death does what God tells him to do. When God tells him to take a life, he takes the life. Takes the soul out. Doesn't act independently, regardless of what the Christians say. Because we don't believe in fallen angels, but we've spoken about that. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. First part of the question is, if a person did sorcery on someone else, and a year later the person dies, is that an omen? No, because that's when the person was supposed to die. Even if you tell me it happened the same day or a day later, still not an omen. They're going to die anyway. That's just the way they died. That's the first question. That now. Next part of the question is, was the Torah say something like this happens, they die in line with their dates of their own planning? Coincidence. Person has a premonition, they're going to die, I don't know, December 25th. They're going to die December 25th. Are they in control when they're going to die? Unless they take their own lives. And even then, not guaranteed they will or not. But let's say, make it very easy. Person has a premonition. They have a certain feeling, I don't know, whatever it is. They feel they're going to die on this day. And it goes in line with the exact day they thought. And they die on that day. Yeah, what does the Torah say? Nothing. The Torah says doesn't mean anything. Premonition doesn't mean anything. What a person feels doesn't mean anything. Because you don't know. You don't know. If a person had a vision, God came to him in a vision, prophecy, which we don't have prophecy today. The only prophets today are little children or imbeciles. So we don't have prophecy today. Well, let's say God came to someone, told them this is going to happen, go give over this message or do this or do that. And it was real prophecy, different issue. Lowest form of prophecy today is when? Is what? Divine inspiration. The low form of prophecy. There are some great people today that have divine inspiration. Okay. No one else does. So even if a person would have some sort of premonition, they would think they're going to die on this day, December 25th. They make the premonition they're going to die December 25th. Why? Who knows? They made it on that day. And guess what? They died on December 25th. You'll say, very interesting coincidence. Yeah. Because the person claimed that's when it was going to happen. They felt in their bones that's what was going to happen. They were going to die then. It doesn't mean anything, right? I'll make it really graphic. Someone came, I think it was to the Marshal, one of the great rabbis more than 200-300 years ago, and said he had a dream. He was a wagon driver. He had a dream, he was taking somebody, and it was, stormy night, and lost control, fell in the river and drowned. That was a dream. He had this dream many times. I think this is a story with the Marshal. And the Marshal told him, don't worry about it. We don't look at dreams. 99% of dreams don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. Could be a person that had too many anchovies. It could have been, thought they were thinking about whatever. But essentially, they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. So he told him, you have nothing to worry about. But he kept having this dream. He had this reoccurring dream. So he went back to the Marshal. The Marshal told him the same thing. In Malin Vein Moridin, they don't go up, they don't go down. Nothing happens. Don't worry about it. It's a bad dream. So he had to go out. It was the middle of a storm. And exactly what happened in the dream happened. And he drowned and he died. So the family obviously had complaints against the Marshal because they knew he kept having this dream. But the Marshal told him, dreams don't mean anything. That's what the Gemara says. They don't mean anything in general. Unless you're a king, then that might be an issue. But for most people, dreams mean nothing. Nothing. So they had a claim against the Marshal. And during the mourning period, he went to visit them. He went to console them. And they asked him. They asked him straight away. Killed our father. Killed my husband. He said if he would have come to me today and told me he had the dream, I would have said the same thing. That's how he was supposed to die. Okay. That's the way he meant. That's the way he went. He was destined to die that way. Okay. But dreams don't mean anything. He could have died any other way. But he kept having that recurring dream. Okay. So it must have been a sign. So the Marshal said, no such thing. No such thing. It just so happens he died that way. Okay. He could have died 1,000 different ways. But he said, if he would have come to me the next day and whatever, keep telling me he had this dream, I would have said the exact same thing. Because the Gemara says dreams don't mean anything. It's not destiny here. But that's the way it went. Okay. Right? Now, that's a little more graphic. Because the person gets to have the same dream. That's kind of a scary dream. Okay. But who says he was supposed to die that way? It just so happens he died that way. Good. I mean, not so good for him. Whatever. He died. He died that way. But dreams don't mean anything. This looks really bad. It looks like this is so significant, and the Marshal blew it and he killed him. You should have told him, when the weather's that bad, you don't go out. No matter what, you don't go out. It's a bad sign. Ein malin vein moridin. Dreams don't mean diddly squat. The fact he died that way, interesting coincidence. Interesting coincidence. Now, the question is how the family took that. Yeah. But that's the truth. Dreams in general don't matter. Now, if a person has a dream and it bothers them, you can do what we call chatavas chalom. Get 3 people, certain things you say to, alleviate the fear of the person that had the dream. There is such a thing. Now, why do you do that? Why would you do that? Because the dream bothered you. You don't want it to come to fruition or whatever. So, but when it's the person's emunah, but a person keeps having the same dream over and over again, maybe it's significant. Maybe there's a real serious message there. But again, the answer is dreams don't mean anything. But this looks really bad. Because essentially, what do I have? The person died from what happened in the dream. Sounds like a bad Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Yeah, he died because of a bad dream, but that's not why he died. He just happened to die in that way. Oh, but he had all these dreams, same dream. So, sounds significant, but he could have died any other way. He happened to die the same way, had the dream. Okay. Very interesting coincidence. But if the Gemara says dreams don't mean anything, they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. So if you say 99% don't mean anything, what about the 1%? Okay, but this doesn't apply to him. This would not apply to him. Applies to a king. Applies to a prophet. For most people, or let's say better, everybody else doesn't apply. The person, yeah, could be leery of dreams, this and that, but they got nothing to worry about. Ninth chapter of Tractate Brachos goes through a lot. If you see this in a dream, it means this. If you see that in a dream, it can mean this or that. The other thing. So there are things mean certain things. Okay, but today, today doesn't mean anything. It don't mean anything. All right, question. Someone asks, what if a Ben Noach, a Noahide, made a vow and he breaks? Yeah. Right. So the question is, that a non-Jew makes a vow. Now, we're not allowed to make vows. We're not allowed to make vows in general. Right? Jews certainly are not allowed to make vows. Right? That there's no question. And it's better, and it comes out that it's better never to make a vow. Better to never make a vow than to make a vow and keep it. Right? Why? What's the problem? The problem is that you're not going to keep the vow. Right? Essentially, you're not going to keep the vow. So it's better not to make the vow. Right? Definitely better not to make a vow. Now you see that Avram and Yitzchak made Avimelech make an oath. Right? If you go back in the Torah, you see that they made him make an oath. Right? So from there you see what? That non-Jews commanded to keep the promise. But what is the command over here? In other words, if you're going to tell me a non-Jew has to keep what they say, right? They have to keep what they say. So where does it come under the Noahide laws? Right? Certainly not one of the Noahide laws. So the Meshech Chochmah of Meir Simcha of Davinsk says, it's commentary on the Torah, says Exodus chapter 20, verse 7, there's no explicit mitzvah that requires non-Jews to fulfill their oaths. Now, why would they be obligated to? According to Noahide laws, they're not obligated. Maybe it's a moral imperative, as I would say. Because it's obvious it's a moral responsibility. Right? It comes under the category of what? A mitzvah sichlis. What is a mitzvah sichlis? It means a logical mitzvah. Yeah, in other words, they made an oath. They shouldn't have made an oath. But really, so in this world, they wouldn't get punished. Right? It's not one of the 7 mitzvahs. Right? It could be it's punishment in heaven, but it's not a punishment in this in this case. Right? In this world. Right? Maybe in the next world it would be. Now, what would happen? What would happen if that's true? Yeah, and they do what we do, right? Right before Rosh Hashanah, right? Right before Rosh Hashanah, tomorrow, exactly, we do nullification of vows. We have a nullification of vows. So a non-Jew has to keep, his vows over here. So it could be that they transgress not keeping the vow. So uprooting it, I would say you don't need Ataras Nadarim, uprooting a vow by a non-Jew. Now, why would I say that? Because I'm one of the Noahide laws. If it's a moral imperative, meaning it's a good thing that non-Jews keep what they say, in other words, or they whatever they say they're going to do, they're going to fulfill what they say. So what would we say? They didn't do it. They transgressed, not in this world. Maybe in the heavenly court they transgressed. Okay. So if they didn't transgress in this world, I would say to uproot it, all they have to do is repent. Proper repentance. Proper repentance should knock it out. They don't have the same obligation. They don't have this whole thing of nullification of vows. Jews do. This is like a moral imperative. If it's a moral imperative, then they don't have to uproot it. They can't uproot it. They did it. Okay. Not death penalty. Right? It's certainly not death penalty. It's not one of the Noahide laws. Moral imperative. So if it's a moral imperative, they don't have to uproot it. They have to repent for it. They should repent for it. They should have regret that they did it. They should have remorse. They should say they're never going to do it again. Okay, but to uproot it, they don't have to. Right? They wouldn't have that same obligation. Yeah, someone asks, can a young person pass the age of majority, which is 13 for a boy, 12 for a girl? Right? Age, yeah. Can they get converted in Judaism if they want? So that depends. If they're living at home with their family converts, so they'll convert with the family. Right? They'll have to go to Jewish school and all that. Very good. If they're living on their own, I mean, they won't be living on their own, but let's say they're living somewhere else, a rabbinical court probably not going to convert them until much later. Right? At least they're in their 20s, they're on their own, living in a community. If they're living at home and the parents convert, they convert with them. Yeah. Certainly a younger child, that wouldn't be a question if it's in their best interest to convert. Yeah, but let's say they want to convert, the parents don't. A rabbinical court's never going to convert them because they're still at home. I get this sometimes, not that young. People that are, let's say, 16, 17, 18, or just starting university or college. Beis Din will never look at them. They will never convert them till they're older. Now, it could be by the age of 20, 21, whatever. But at that young age, while they're still, at the beginning of their studies at university, they're not going to convert them usually. They usually won't. At that young age, for sure not. If they're on their own, if the parents, not that they're on their own, but their parents don't want to convert. If the family is going to convert, they convert with them. They definitely could convert with him. Again, as long as it's in their best interest, and if they can go to a Jewish school, which is not so simple, then they'll take them before conversion, but it doesn't matter. If it's in their best interest, the Beis Din will convert them, right? Even at younger ages. Even at younger ages, no question. That's what I would say on that. Somebody asks, king or leader of some country wants to convert all those people over citizens. How can he do it? I don't know. Force them. You try and force them. You had that before. Forced conversions to Christianity. Yeah. Had that during the Inquisition, other times. Right? So, how could they do it? Just the cross or die. That's how they do it. Be like us or die. Right? So a Jew has to give up their life. Jew 100% has to give up their life. Can't do it. Idolatry, right? It's one of the big three. You know, but don't you put a gun to your head and say, bow down to this guy in the stick, or a short little fat guy. Mr. Buddha himself says, hey, bow down to fat, so big mitzvah to make fun of idolatry. Or die, gotta be willing to die. Any circumstances, gotta be willing to die. If you don't die, what happens if you don't give up your life? You don't sanctify God's name? It's Torah prohibition. You don't get death penalty for that, but it's Torah prohibition. Torah prohibition. Yeah. So if that's true, then I would say in this case, how's the king going to do it? By force. 100%. That's how he's going to do it. Right? We've seen it before. Seen it in history. That was the case. You had a lot of Jews flee these type of countries, or one of them died because they refused to kiss the cross. Right? So if a king wanted to do it, he has to do it by force. He can make it the decree, and then anyone who doesn't uphold of it, kills them, puts them in jail. I don't know. They have to do it by force. Or how is he going to do it? Right? How is he going to do it? Someone here mentioned suing persons in situation, a lot of difficulty, not make certain transgression. Okay. So again, it depends what the transgression is. If a person was living somewhere and that country makes decrees, even if they're not, do idolatry or die, well, they say you have to wear certain clothes because that's what we enforce. Yeah. Or you're going to die. So even small things a person would have to be willing to die for, a Jew would have to die for, if it's something that goes against what they're trying to get them to go against their religion. Yeah. So if it's something they're trying to get them to go against their religion, they still have to die rather than transgress. And if they don't, let's say they can't stand up to it, they don't. So it's a Torah prohibition. I'm not sanctifying God's name. It's a Torah prohibition. Not death penalty, but it's a Torah prohibition. Further assume individual prays daily. Now to be taken into that situation. Okay. Prayers are not answered. So, so a lot of our prayers don't get answered the way we think. Person prays for this, prays for that. Last second, nothing comes through. Yeah. That's it. So they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. What are they supposed to do? They don't have a choice. So if prayers go unanswered, they go unanswered. The answer was no. So they didn't get saved. Right? They couldn't escape. Whatever it was. So now they say here, pluck this blade of grass on the Sabbath, or we're going to kill you. They couldn't flee. They couldn't leave. Nothing happens. Come Shabbos, they say, do it or die. You got to die. Your obligation is you got to die. Now, according to that, they're doing it to have you go against your religion. That a person has to give up their life. Yeah, someone there says not a transgression against his religion. So it depends what it is. If it's not a transgression against their religion, yeah, and it's nothing forbidden, then they can do it. Right? They can do it to save their lives. But it has to be obviously something's not transgression and something's not forbidden. I made it very easy. Something that is forbidden. If it's something not forbidden, yeah, they say, listen, we're going to kill you unless you go out in the freezing cold and you have to jump in the snow with a tank top and shorts, yeah, for 20 minutes or for half an hour. Otherwise we're going to kill you. Well, you could die of frostbite out there also, maybe, right? But you're allowed to do that. It's not a problem. Saving your life. If you're saving your life in a way that's permissible, good. If there's no possible way to save, if it's something that's forbidden, then you have to give up your life. Right? Not, it depends. Again, it depends what it is. But a lot of things, they say they're doing it. Let's say it's shmad. Shmad means that they want you to go against your religion. If it's not anything against your religion, and it's not forbidden, and maybe it's not even a moral issue per se, what I would say a moral imperative, then maybe it's okay. Depends, depends what it is. Depends what it is. Yeah, another question here. All right, one second. I'll get to that question in a second. Someone says you can't find a pomegranate for Rosh Hashanah. With which other simonim can replace it? I mean, anything that has seeds in it, right? But I suppose we say that it's an omen that we say that you should have what do you call it? You should have you should do like as many mitzvahs as there are on this pomegranate, right? So you don't have pomegranate, you use something else, right? Something else that has seeds. We normally use pomegranate, but if you don't have pomegranate, if you don't have any of these symbols or you only have some of them, you could still say the Yehi Ratzon even if you don't have it. You can still say, whatever we say, even if you don't have it, right? So if you don't have it, you don't have it, but you can still say what we say. Someone asked, I was going to get to this, but I'll get to it now. Someone asked, is there possibly a perfect method to interpret Torah? No. No perfect method. There are 70 faces of Torah, right? Right? There are 70 faces to Torah. People like to interpret things Kabbalistically. People according to strict law, Jewish law. People homiletically. People a lot of different ways, right? We say there are 13 different principles, 13 different ways of interpreting Torah. Yeah, there are more than that. But there are 13, basic ways to interpret Torah. So now, someone's going to ask, is there a perfect way? No. Not a perfect way. There are a lot of different ways. Who's to say which way is right? So that's a good question. Who's to say which way is right? Now, it depends. You can have different ways to interpret, but if the rabbis tell us, listen, this is the wrong way to look at it, and the halacha comes out like this and like this, it doesn't matter how someone else interprets it. If that's the law, and that's what we do, and that's how we hold, so it doesn't matter how someone else interprets it. Right? Also, you go according to the majority. So, there's not one way to interpret Torah. People make the claim, it's a wrong claim. But people make the claim, who says, the way you're doing it is right? Maybe we're right. Maybe this one's right. Okay, but we have a hierarchy. Right? We do know, in certain circumstances, we have a difference of opinion in the Gemara between this one and that one. We know how we hold. We have certain laws. Right? We have certain laws, how it goes. And, usually going to go according to the majority. Yeah, difference of opinions. Sephardic tradition, Ashkenazic tradition, very good, right? So it depends that way also. Sometimes, I mean, most things we agree on. So there are discrepancies, but it depends on what it is, right? So first question: First question is there one way, perfect method? No, there's no perfect method. And is it possible a new version of Torah could be or could have been written in the form of oral law? No. What we have is what we have. Now, rabbis in every generation have a right to interpret it, right? That's not a new version of Torah, right? God gave the ability for the rabbis to interpret, right? Torah tells me that. We have the right to interpret. Now, we're going to go, obviously, based on previous generations. We're not going to say, well, this generation was wrong on this or wrong on that. Things have to be understood, right? Torah have to be understood. But a whole new version? No. That'll never happen, because when God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai and he gave the Torah, he also gave him all the explanations. Now, some things didn't apply back then. It says don't light a fire on Shabbos, right? I shouldn't say don't apply, but they have to be understood, right? Does not light a fire on Shabbos mean just a match, a bigger fire? What about gas? What about electric? What about microwave? They didn't know back then, but they gave us the right in every generation to interpret. See, what about electricity? Is electricity really fire? Or what's the prohibition? Different issue, right? Different, gave us the right to interpret. So a new Torah coming up will never happen. That will never happen, right? For example, someone there asked using numbers, gematria, right? Every letter has numeric value, right? Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3, right? Using number mathematics to determine a perfected form of grammar. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Because King Solomon says, nothing new under the sun. You're not going to have something that's going to come out and reinvent the wheel. That's not going to happen. Now, it could be. You could have great mathematicians, do these codes in the Torah and show where Haman is in the Torah, or show where like Hitler is in the Torah, and genocide and Holocaust and different things, and in which portion, if you count so many letters. Okay. Yeah, but that's an interpretation. Okay. We're not deriving Jewish law that way. Right? Also, we don't derive Jewish law from Medrash. Medrash are statements from like the Talmud that didn't make it into the Talmud. More esoteric. So you see, sometimes, commentators will quote a Medrash and this and that. But everybody knows, anyone, who's learned and, really learns, they know you never use a Medrash for a halacha. Let's say better. You never derive halacha from a medrash. Set it backwards. You never derive halacha from a medrash. You don't do it. It's not done. Doesn't have the same force as the Gemara does. So therefore, you're never going to have numbers, mathematics, anything else that's going to reinvent the wheel and say, "Oh, look, we got better grammar from this and from that." That's not going to happen. It's a different way of looking at things. Okay. Yeah. But, something like that, you take somebody like the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra was an unbelievable grammarian. You're going to think the numbers we come up with in supercomputers are going to be better than what he did? No, I don't think so. It's not going to be a new interpretation. Also, on this, if man becomes like angels, actually makes an overall effort towards improving life in its entirety, man will never become an angel. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't become an angel. Close. Moshe Rabbeinu did not become an angel. A man will never become an angel. It's impossible. No matter how much they perfect themselves, they will never be an angel. Why not? Because angels don't have free will. Man always has free will. So since man has free will, no matter what they do, how much they perfect themselves, they'll never come up to the ankles of an angel, even though angels don't have ankles. Right? In general. It's not going to happen. Somebody asked, so that's what I would answer for that. Someone asked, should our 13-year-old son attend these Q&A and conversion classes? Conversion classes, yeah. I don't know how much it's going to understand, but Yeah, I think it's a good thing, right? To know when to make blessings, how to make blessings, other things. Yeah, it's got to be taught on his level also. Is the rabbi's interpretation his own and first-time opinion? No, I just said that. King Solomon says, "Ein davar chadash tachas hashemesh." Any idea you've come up with has probably been out there in the world before. You're not coming out with anything new. Your interpretation is not anything new. If you say something, you say, "Well, I never saw anyone brought it down." You know why no one brought it down? Because it's probably not true. If previous generations didn't say it, and they're a billion times smarter than we'll ever be in 10 lifetimes, right? Let that sink in. They're greater than us and we'll be in 10 lifetimes. We're never going to come up with something they didn't come up with. Oh, really? The Ritva, the Ritva, the Rajpa, Rabbeinu Nisim, the Ran, the Rosh, Rashi. Oh, they didn't think of this question. Yeah, why didn't they think of the question? I'll tell you why they didn't think of the question, because it wasn't a question. If it would have been a question, it would have been addressed. So I remember I had this question. I didn't see anyone, bring it down. So I thought about it for a few days, back and forth, kept coming back to it, see if I could find something, and I saw it. No one really asked the question. So, I got to be missing something, right? I didn't say, well, it's my question. Yeah, it's my question, and therefore, it's a valid question. You want to see someone who asks the question. But there's a reason why no one asked the question. Because on a question. Otherwise, I would have asked it. So I had this over a few days. I said, you know what? I'm not so well versed in these verses. Let me go look up the verses again. Because the verses, had to do with purity and impurity and sacrifices together. So it's a little more complex. I said, okay, let me look back. Maybe I missed something. Can happen. Not a world expert in these things. So I said, let me go back and look. So what happened? I went back and looked. There was black and white. See, but it's also Torah, though. I mean, but people want to go learn Kabbalah and want to learn this and want to learn that. There are verses we don't know. We don't know the interpretation of. So here I'm looking at this and that. I'm thinking, oh, maybe like this, maybe like that, racking my brains. I didn't see anyone who asked the question, whatever. Okay. Not all questions we have get answered. We like to have answers. So, okay. So lo and behold, you know why my question wasn't a question? Because it was an explicit verse in the Torah. That's why no one asked it. Stupid for me. Of course it wasn't a question, you dimwit. It's right there, black and white. It's there, black and white. How'd you not know? Got to learn Chumash better, right? So we're not going to ask anything that's never been asked before. Doesn't matter how much knowledge we think we have today. We think we have a lot more knowledge than, the rabbis of previous generations, because we've got supercomputers, we got the Rabbi Dr. Google, we got all this information in front of us that they didn't have. Yeah. So that might, that might be true, but you know what? They had world-class knowledge that we don't have. And that's why you look at a Rashi, you got to think, what's he commenting on? What's he talking about, right? In Chumash. Rashi had the entire Talmud in front of him. He knew how to understand the Talmud before Rashi. Someone asked me that a long time ago. How did people understand the Talmud before Rashi? Very good. First of all, it was oral. Right? Second of all, they were close to the source, so they understood what it meant. But if you didn't have Rashi in the world, it's very hard to understand what's going on. What it's talking about. But again, Rashi had everything in front of it. And you see the Ramban a lot of times takes issue with what Rashi says. And all disagreements. Okay. There are disagreements, very true. Right? But it's not going to be a first-time interpretation. We're not reinventing the wheel. There are people, look at things this way, that way. Yeah, you can say like this, you can say like that. But at the end of the day, Jewish law doesn't change. Doesn't change that much. What we do doesn't change that much. So our interpretation is not going to be something new that's never been out there in the world. Again, why do I say that? Because there were people in previous generations. I mean, go back to Rashi. Come on. Going back 1,000 years. 1,000 years. He knew everything about everything. You have the Rambam, you have the Ramban, you have the Rosh. I mean, talking about giants, we don't come up to their toenails, not at all, not at all. So you had a question, none of them asked. And you see the later commentaries, so say the Beis Yosef didn't ask the question. See the Aruch LaNer, the Avnei Nezer, they wrote the book Avnei Nezer. You see other great people, Rabbi Akiva, the Chasam Sofer, you look all around, you're racking your brain, no one asked the question. Yeah, seemingly it's not a question. Or you're going to come up with an answer why they didn't ask the question. See, my Rabbi do that sometimes. I'll give an example. I was just learning this the other day. This whole thing about Ger Toshav, right? About a non-Jew who lives amongst the Jewish people. Either they hold by the Noahide laws or they go against idolatry. Whatever it is. But the Gemara says clear. The Gemara increases. That's where I'm holding. The Gemara increases says they have to bring a sacrifice after they convert. Yeah, pretty straightforward law. Now, you don't have a temple, you can't give sacrifices. So why don't they give whatever sacrifice would cost? Let's say they'd have to bring a sacrifice that costs, I don't know, $200, $300, let's say, or more. Right? Let's say we'll make it cheap. Right? We'll make it cheap. $200, let's say, for this sacrifice after they convert. Why don't people have to set aside money and give it to charity? Now, Mary asked this question, and he says, it's a wonder in my eyes that nobody asked the question. Because very simple. We don't have a temple today, so what are you supposed to do? You can't bring a sacrifice after you convert. There's no sacrifice to be brought, period. You can't do it. Right? So if you can't do it, what are you supposed to do? So Rabbi says. So why don't people give charity? Give the equivalent or somewhat of the equivalent, whatever they can afford, whatever it is, and give it to charity. And that would be like giving the sacrifice. Right? I've seen him do this a number of times. Nobody brings this question down. Nobody asks the question. Yeah, and it's a valid question. So then he goes into why they didn't ask the question or what you're supposed to do, even if they didn't ask the question. But in general, most people today, even with the greatest minds, they don't compare to previous generations for sure. But not only that, they're not reinventing the wheel. They are not coming up with things no one's ever thought of. They may embellish it. They may ask questions on it. Why did they say like this or say like that? Right? That whole thing sharpens the mind. Okay, that's a different issue. But coming up with something that no one ever thought of, not going to happen. King Solomon was the wisest of all men. King Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. You're not reinventing the wheel. Nobody is reinventing the wheel. So someone asks, that was part of the question, isn't a rabbi's interpretation his own? No, it's not his own. It's already been in the world. Great rabbis in previous generations worked much harder than we do and brought that idea into the world. All of a sudden we think about, it's my idea. No, it's not your idea. You may think it's your idea, but where the idea come from? Maybe it came from the Beis Yosef. Maybe it came from Rashi. Maybe it came from the Ramban. Maybe it came from, I don't know, maybe it came from the Rosh. Rabbi Akiva. Could have come from anybody. It's not your own. It's not your own. There's never something we've thought of that's never been in the world before. So therefore, even if you want to tell me, which is not true, that it's going to be his own opinion, and therefore people are going to follow that path, it's going to be a new form of Torah. It's not. It can never be a new form of Torah. Because God revealed himself to the Jewish people. He passed it down to Moses, gave the rabbis the right to interpret. There are certain parameters you have to stay within. You think someone's going to come up with a great idea and say, oh, you know what? I can circumvent the idea of boirer, of selection on Shabbos. I'm going to come up with this great idea, this new finagle way. You're never going to have a problem and it doesn't exist. That's never going to happen. These things are never going to be uprooted. It's never going to be a new Torah. Never. Even if they came up with the unbelievable explanation, it's not going to go against the majority. Never. What can happen is things have to be reevaluated. What do you do about electricity? Great rabbis last generation sat on it for a while and said, is electricity, why is it forbidden on Shabbos? What category does it come under? So there's a whole difference of opinion, but everyone agreed it's forbidden. They all agreed it's forbidden. That's not making up a new thing. All that is understanding how it fits into what fire is and what category it comes under. But it's never going to be a new Torah. The only possible way to be a new Torah, which will never happen, is that God, again, will come, reveal himself, to the world, and he'll change the Torah. And he'll say, you don't have to keep this, you keep that, whatever. Right? That's the only way, but it's gonna be in front of a huge group of people. But that's never happened, it never will. Because the Torah doesn't change. Even if rabbis, come up with ideas and this and that, it's not their own. You see it throughout the generations like that. The Chasam Sofer, Rabbi Kiva Eger, they weren't going against Rashi. They weren't going against the Ramban. They may disagree. They may say, well, Rashi said like this against the Ramban like that and come up with the whole thing, but it's not changing the law in general. The law never changes. The way they look at things may change a little bit. Okay. Yeah. And how they understand things may change a little bit. That's true. It's not going to change the essence of the law. It's not going to make up a whole new Torah. That'll never happen. That'll never happen. Now, part C over here is, so can you turn Torah using mathematics? You could, in theory. People use gematria, right? That's what it is. You're putting numerical numbers, numerical values to letters. And you say, well, this is like this, and this has the same numerical value as that, and this. Like, I'll give an example. The numerical value of the word Amalek. Yeah, the numerical value of the word Amalek and the numerical value of the word doubt is the same. What did Amalek bring to the world? Doubt. Did that change anything? Did that change any law? No. Right? Purim's a good example also. They say you don't know how much you've drank unless, you can't know the difference between Baruch Mordechai and Arah Haman. Right? Blessed be Mordechai and cursed be Haman. Now, it so happens the gematria of those two statements are the same. The numerical value of those letters are exactly the same. If you can do the numerical values, you haven't drank enough. Right? Now, some would say if you sleep, you don't know the difference between, you don't know the difference between blessed be Mordechai and cursed be Haman. There are other ways to do it. You don't have to get plastered. But at the same time, the numerical value is the same. Okay. Does that change anything? Doesn't change anything. There are people that like to do these things. Okay, very good. Yeah, it doesn't change anything. It's going to be harder to do them anyways. I mean, I've heard some people say, well, numerical value of this is like this, so I can conclude like this and like this. I don't know what level of validity that has. How much validity? Could a person do it? They could. They could, but you have to see what it's worth. That's what I would say. So, next question then is, if I get to it. So, is there a method of interpretation that is the best way at the time of the sage? I said no. There is no best way. Different people looked at things differently. Rashi, in his interpretation, simple explanation of the verse. The Ramban, more esoterical, a lot of it has to do with Kabbalah. Yeah. People looked at things in a different way. So again, you want to ask me, which I already answered, but I'll answer again. And that is there a method of interpretation the best way? No. Even this generation. There are people who like simple explanation, people who like esoteric explanations, people like, anything in between. Right? There's no perfect way. There's no one way. There are 70 faces of Torah. So there would not be one perfect way to do it. But if you're within the parameters of Torah, very good. So you can interpret this way, interpret that way, within certain parameters, but the laws don't change. That's the point. Is that even if You have a little bit different way of looking at things or whatever. Okay. But the laws don't change. You got people in Breslov, they like to sing and dance, they like to do his bodidus, right? They like to go out to the fields and meditate. Very good, but you still have to pray with a minyan. You still have to pray with 10 men. That doesn't change. But they're going to get closer, this and that, if they do that. Okay. There is what to be said for that. Okay. Does that negate the fact you have to pray with 10 men? No. That doesn't negate the fact. But they'll feel they'll get close to Judaism that way. You can't go against what we're already told to do. Does that mean a person can't say their own prayers? No, I didn't say that. They can say their own prayers, but it has to be within certain parameters. If you go outside those parameters, that's a problem. That is a serious problem. Right? If they would do, if a person, let's say, would pray by themselves, a man, because they got an obligation to pray 3 times a day, right? Women once or twice, but not even with 10 men. So if you have an obligation to pray 3 times a day, who says you can go meditate and do that? I'm going to be closer to God. But you know what? You have a mixture of people there. People who are more righteous, less righteous. God listens to the prayers of the community much clearer than he does with someone who prays by themselves. Again, if you couldn't get to synagogue, okay. You don't live near a synagogue, okay. Right? But if you pray by yourself in general, again, it doesn't apply to women, and a guy doesn't go pray with 10 men, God is going to scrutinize those prayers like no tomorrow. Not because you didn't feel well, whatever. There's a power of praying with a community. A community means 10 men, a huge power. Doesn't matter, you don't notice what's going on. People are talking, doing other things. Okay, but there's power in prayer in a community. You cannot go live on your own island and sing and dance and meditate 3 times a day. That is just not going to fly in the Torah. It's not going to fly. But can't someone do that? If they want to meditate, let them meditate. Very good. Still got to pray with 10 men. That doesn't negate the fact, right? So even a person wants to do that, I don't have an issue with that. If someone wants to do that, very good, but you got to be mainstream. And mainstream means you follow what the halacha is. And the halacha is you pray with a community, with 10 men. And if you pray by yourself, you think, oh, I can't do it, whatever it is, God's going to scrutinize those prayers 10 times more. You'll never get what you want. So it's not worth it. Totally not worth it. I didn't say you can't meditate. I didn't say you can't do his bodidus, go in the middle of a forest and think lofty thoughts. I didn't say you can't do that. Can't say you can't say your own prayers either, but it's got to be within certain parameters. And if it's not within some certain parameters, then do what you want. Then go do what you want. Don't call it Torah. There are too many people out there doing what they think they want to do. Hey, so let them do what they want to do. Very good. They're not going to get very far. And you're not going to pass that down either. But if you're going to pray with 10 men, I want to meditate. Find some other time to meditate. Do it twice a week, whatever. It doesn't matter. It cannot take the place of prayers, period. Can't do it. You cannot change the facts. That's what it is. Sometimes we pray better. Sometimes we pray worse. Sometimes we're not in the mood. Okay, you still got to do it to the best of your ability. And some people have a problem with this. I understand. They want to meditate. They want to feel, closer to nature, other things. Beautiful. I don't have a problem with that. But you still got to pray 3 times a day if you're in a community with men, with 10 men. It doesn't negate the halacha. The halacha doesn't change. That's what I would say on that. Somebody asks, oh, wow, a lot of questions here. Someone asked, what will be the future of the world? All human beings become Jews. Not everyone's going to be Jews. Because when there are miracles going on, the Messiah comes, no one's going to be allowed to convert. The only people going to be allowed to convert if they were accepted by a rabbinical court. This great rabbi once told me. Right? Not everyone's going to be Jewish. Non-Jews that survive, they'll keep the Noahide laws. They're not going to be allowed to convert because you're seeing open miracles. If you're seeing open miracles, you don't have free will. Right? So, same thing. In the time of King David and King Solomon, anyone allowed to convert? No. Why not? Open miracles. Then open miracles. Right? So not everyone's going to become Jewish, not at all. Some will still be allowed to convert, depending where they're holding in the process. Others will have to stay as non-Jews. or just live with different religions. No. These different religions got to be wiped off the face of the map. Either you're going to be a Noahide or you're going to be a Jew. That's it. Christianity, all the Christians, unless they repent, whoever repents, there'll be Noahides afterwards, right? Any other religion going to disappear off the face of the map. Nobody's going to be left except us or Noahides. Doesn't Torah allow for breaking of Shabbos a person's life in danger? That's a different issue. Not talking about that. If you have to break Shabbos, dangerous situation, sure. Right, but that's within the parameters of Torah. That's in the parameters of the laws of Shabbos, sure. You're allowed to do that, 100%. A convert's treated differently from someone who was born Jewish. Sometimes. Sometimes they are, I would say discriminated against in different ways. Communities may have issues with them and taking them into schools and other things. And if they want to get married, it'll be harder for them, right? But essentially, there should not be that. They shouldn't be mistreated. I get this question all the time. I'm in a community, mistreated this way, that way. It's not right. Not going to defend it. It's not right. Should not be mistreated. It's Torah prohibition. Many Torah prohibitions. Mistreating converts. So you say, why did Jews do it? First of all, not all Jews do it. Second of all, if they do it, it's wrong. I'm not going to answer for them. It's wrong. Period. Someone asked, please refer to me to Torah section that confers on the right to interpret. 1 second. Deuteronomy. Let's find the exact. Let's see if I find it here. 1 second. Could be in Parsha Shoftim. I don't know if we're going to get the source. One second. No. It's a different verse. I have to find it. There's a verse that says that you have an obligation to listen to the Kohanim, and the Levites in every generation. It says Deuteronomy chapter 33, verses 8 to 10 says that that's not the right thing. 1 second, because it's a praise to Levi. But it says, let them teach your judgments to Yaakov, your Torah to Yisrael. Right? They're the teachers. Right? They are the teachers. I mean, whatever. Find the right quote. Let me just see if I find it here. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 14, the Levites shall answer, they shall say to all the men of Israel with a loud voice, what the Torah says. Right? 1 second. Deuteronomy, where is it? In chapter 18, verse 5. Or maybe it's Leviticus. Chapter 7, not exactly sure. It says, for the word of God is chosen from all the tribes, right? Talking about the Levites, the Kohanim, to stand and minister, to teach, right? To serve. Right? It's in Leviticus. But there's a specific verse in the book of Deuteronomy. I'm not finding it here. That says clear. It won't take me too long to find it, but I'm not going to find it now. It states clear that you have an obligation to listen to the Kohen and the Levite in every generation. If you don't listen to them, you get death penalty. Now, what does it mean to listen to them? It means whatever they say, that's what you do. Now, who are the Kohanim in every generation? We don't have a temple today, right? They can't serve in the temple today. So they're the teachers. They're the teachers of the Jewish people. Who are the teachers of the Jewish people today? The rabbis. They got an obligation to listen to them. Right? But if the Torah says, which I know it does, that you have to listen to Kohen and Levite in every generation, that means whoever represents the Kohanim and Levites today, and that's the rabbis, you have to listen to them. But I'll find the exact source on that. And if you don't listen to them, by the way, you get death penalty. That's what the Torah says. They say what's left is right, right is left, you get death penalty. Someone asked, is there a yardstick indicates what degree a person needs to become more pious? Is there a yardstick? I would say, we have to be the best we can be in general. That's our obligation. Serve God the way, the best possible way. I would suggest you want to go step by step, you should read Path of the Just by the Ramchal. And it's very hard, to have what do you call that? To be fastidious and to be, to be righteous, to be a chassid, to have, cleanliness of thought, doing all these things, step by step. So, there's, do you have to reach a certain level? No, you learn at whatever level you're at and you try and grow. You try and learn as much as you can. You try and be as righteous as you can, right? There's no limits. We have unlimited potential. Right? Man has unlimited potential. So, you got to start somewhere. I would say you got to take stock of what you do. Right? You got to take stock of, of your life. Make a, what we call a cheshbon nefesh, right? What's it called? A self-accounting. Right? You have to take a self-accounting. You have to see where you're really holding in the world, what you do good, what you don't necessarily do so good, what you want to fix up, right? There's no limit. Some things we do better, some things we do worse. I'll tell you what the bottom line is. You got to want, King Solomon says in Proverbs, you got to want Torah more than anything else. Or the rubies, diamonds. You got to learn it. And you got to take time to learn it. You got to find time to learn it. And learn it the right way and be the best you can be. There is no yardstick. Right? You got to keep Shabbos. You got to keep kosher, right? These are things you have to do as a Jew, right? Or, or if you want to be a Jew, that's what you got to do to the best of your ability. It takes time to learn all this stuff. Working on character traits also very important. Plenty of things, but there's no, there's no limited thing that a person has to do. So people always ask me for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, what do I need to fix? And I say everything. Yeah, not such a good answer. We have to work on whatever we can work on, whatever we can change for the better. But you have to want Torah more than anything else. What if you're holding nowhere? Good, so you can only go up. There's plenty what to learn. Anything you learn are sound bites. Every sound bite has power. So any building block you make, so you get more knowledge. Then you hear something else, you get more knowledge. But it takes time to get the knowledge. I remember when I first learned in yeshiva, someone's walking around, with the Gemara on their head. I'm like, what are you doing? He said, osmosis. I'm hoping it's going to just go into my brain. I'm like, no, sit down and learn. That's what you got to do. It's a grind, day in and day out. You learn more things. You get more knowledge. It's building blocks. Doesn't mean you're perfect. And it doesn't mean even if I'm holding nowhere in the world, well, how can I keep Shabbos? But I don't really understand all the things, and I don't understand this. Well, if you're a Jew, you got to start somewhere. It's a good excuse to say, well, I don't know this, I don't know that. Why should I bother? You got to start somewhere. You're never going to understand everything fully. It's God-given. If it's God, people make excuses. Oh, if you can't tell me what the reason is, why should I keep it? Because God said to. You idiot. God said you got to keep Torah. That's it. Yeah, but it's hard to understand. Yeah, I can give you 10 reasons why God gave this mitzvah. You can say, nah, I don't like this one. Nah, I don't like that one. That doesn't fit my agenda. Well, who cares if it fits your agenda or not? Did God say you got to keep it or not? You think you know better than God? Think again. Isn't the meaning nothing new under the sun because challenges are the same, different context? No, not necessarily. It's talking about knowledge. That's talking about knowledge. People do have different challenges. That's true, right? You can look at that in a lot of different contexts. One aspect of nothing new under the sun means that we're talking about knowledge. Other things you could say is talking about character traits. what people have to work on, right? Midos, as we would say. It could be that, right? Yeah, you're right. There are different criteria for that, right? There are different things. Not just talking about knowledge. Could be talking about many different things. That is true. Someone here says there is a red temple institute identified an individual meets all the criteria to conduct the red heifer ritual. Very good. Yeah. Do we have a temple? Do we have a temple? No. Last time I checked, we don't have a temple. If we don't have a temple, even if we had a red heifer, right? Even if we have a red heifer, everyone thinks, oh, get a red heifer, beautiful, right? The Messiah is coming. Messiah's right around the corner. I mean, we do believe that the Messiah is around the corner, but it doesn't matter. Even if we have a red heifer, you can't bring it. Why can't you bring it? We're in a state of impurity. You need the temple to be rebuilt. But even if that wasn't the problem, even if I said, yeah, you could bring it, go ahead, go try it. Go try and do it. Practically speaking, if the police don't stop you, the Arabs will. So it's an impossibility either way. Right? So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even if someone knows how to do it, they know all the laws, blah, 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 and they have a red heifer. Let's say they do have a red heifer, right? Every so often you hear stories about it. So let's say they do have a red heifer. Beautiful. So isn't that a sign the Messiah is going to come? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's because we have one. And, just because we have one doesn't mean it's going to be used. And it can't be used anyway right now. But, even if you have someone who knows how to do it and all that, so what? Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean the Messiah is coming tomorrow. I mean, there are many signs we're living the Messianic era. That's not the point. That's not the point. So it's interesting. I would agree. But practically speaking, we're not doing it. We're not bringing sacrifice. We're not on that. We don't have that level of purity today. We just don't have that level of purity. Someone asked, so come over and give charity. That's equivalent to the price of sacrifice. He must bring it to the Beis Hamikdash. Where's he going to bring it to? Where's he going to bring it to? There's no Beis Hamikdash. There's no temple today. If there was a temple, he'd bring a sacrifice. No temple, he'd give it to charity. You should have to give it to charity. The 70 faces Torah correspond to 70 nations. Could, yeah. But again, remember, if the nations say they have wisdom, you can believe them. If the nations say they have Torah, you don't believe them. But yeah, just like 70 nations, original 70 nations, right? So 70 faces, yeah. It just means there are a lot of different ways to interpret. Could it be based on that? Could be. I'm not sure. Not sure if that is or not. I would say. Somebody asked, "Want to wish me Happy New Year?" Okay, we'll get to that in the end. Someone asked, I was wondering about arts. Oh, which subject matter is allowed? Human faces? Yes. Human bodies? No. Can't make a full, more than one dimension of a human body. That's forbidden. Shouldn't make more than one dimension of animals on the Kisei Kavod, God's heavenly throne, right? Lions, eagles, etc. You shouldn't make, more than one dimension of anything in the heavenly spheres, sun, the moon, the stars, right? Something like that. So if a person, let's say, made a bust of a face, or it's 3D or looks 3D or something three-dimensional, that's okay as long as it's not a full body. It's not a full body. Somebody asked, isn't self-reflection required in order to do tshuva? Yeah. You got to look into yourself. It's a hard thing to do, right? Self-accounting is a hard thing to do, but you got to do it. You got to look at yourself in a realistic way without demolishing yourself in the process. Someone mentions red heifer is required for cleansing purposes. Yeah, but it's a catch-22. Even if you took a perfect cow and you burnt it, it's still not that level of purity. It's not going to help. Without a temple, it doesn't help, so it doesn't matter. It's an irrelevant point. Could obviously 70 languages Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah, could be. Right? Good question what it actually corresponds to. Very good question. Someone asked, okay, back to the majority rule. It's probably the last question. Is the majority rule why we follow Torah? And majority rule, Exodus chapter 23, verse 2. Go according to the majority for good. Does that determine which opinion is essentially the way we follow? Yes. But we mentioned the other opinions also. Could be sometimes you can hold according to another opinion if you need a leniency or whatever, right? But you go according to the majority opinion, right? Right? So the majority opinion tells you what the halacha is, what I'm supposed to do. Right? Very good. Right? That is true. You have to go according to the majority. Right? There are some cases I have seen over the years. There are some cases, very few, that you could actually go according to the minority opinion, not the majority opinion. But it's very rare. That's very rare. Rather, could a new way of following Torah be derived like oral law? I don't know if there's a new way. I said that. I don't know if there won't be, there should not be a new way to follow Torah. In order to derive oral law, you're not going to have it. Oral law was closed. When the temple was being destroyed, they wrote it down. They didn't have a choice. They wrote it down. It was codified. It's never going to change. No great person of this generation or previous generations are going to change it. They're going to derive like oral law. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Right? There are certain things in the Talmud, for example, there are certain ways of deriving Torah that if you didn't hear it from your own Rebbe, then you can't make it up on your own. You can't say, I have this source or whatever if you didn't hear it from your Rebbe. You can have 120 IQ, it's not going to help you. That doesn't change, right? So according to that, you're not going to say something that goes against what was said before in order to derive something new. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And then you're going to say, oh, so then you're going to have a new oral law. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, right? Even if you go according to the majority opinion, it's not going to change. That interpretation is not going to change, right? Right? You're not going to have a new way of interpreting oral law. You're not going to have it. Even if you have the majority opinion, it's never going to. Oral law, the way it's derived, is not going to change. That's the bottom line. It's not going to change. Right? Even if you tell me you're not changing the original Torah, that aspect's not going to change. It's never going to change. That's the way people are being taught throughout the generations. Talmudic logic, oral law. No new thing today is going to come out and challenge that. Nothing. Nothing. It's going to be the same way. Now, again, how things are understood, it's still not going to change the halacha, right? Because it go according to the majority. Very good. But the way to get to it, that way of teaching in that style will never change. It's never going to change. All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday. Thursday there will be no Q&A because of Rosh Hashanah. So I do want to wish everyone a happy, healthy New Year. That anyone celebrating, everyone should be written in the book of life. They should have a lot of livelihood. They should have health. If they have kids, they should have enjoyment from their kids. If they have a spouse and family harmony, and all that. So anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Mike Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, ethics for our fathers. Ethics for our fathers. There will be a class Saturday night on ethics for our fathers, or Saturday night for me, after Shabbos and after Rosh Hashanah. So you want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish have a good beginning day.